as a buyer of a property, what are some of the things that a seller may not disclose to you?
Today we're going to talk about three things. One, things that the seller must disclose about the property. Number two, a story of my buyers dealing with the property where there was illegal growth of weed. And three, things that seller may not disclose or not provide all of the details about their property that you should look out for.
Awesome. Welcome to the show. This is Irina. I'm Alina.
What's
we
up,
are
everybody?
NorCal Property Sisters. And
Yes.
Did you just say weed?
I did. I did. So, yeah, okay, so weed is the disclosure item. I think disclosures is the most commonly talked about and the item of most lawsuits in the state of California when it comes to real estate. Things that the seller should have disclosed and they didn't, or things that the buyer didn't know when they were purchasing a house and they found out and they were like, seller, you were supposed to tell me these things, and they go to court and they mediation, arbitration, all of these things. So as the agent, it's our job to guide our clients, either it's a seller representation or the buyer representation, to disclose, because we are the trusted advisors and we are there to help protect you against legal consequences, either buying or selling. So
okay, so give me some. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, one. Things that you would typically get disclosed. Firstly, let me start by saying that the California Residential Purchase Agreement is doing a fantastic job based on numerous lawsuits. I mean, we love our lawsuits in the state of California. So they guide buyers and sellers how to disclose certain things. And we call them material facts because they affect the value and desirability of the property. And if the buyer knew of certain things before, they wouldn't probably offer the price they did, or they wouldn't even buy it. So things like death at the property, whether it was a natural or non-natural causes. If there was a death at the property within the last 3 years, it has to be disclosed. So often, before even showing a property, a listing agent, once I'm scheduling a showing, they would tell me, hey, I thought to let you know there was a death at the property, even before my buyer. Because I have buyers that are completely turned off. They're like, nope, we're not even going into that property. So it's important to know.
Spirits.
Right? And two that I'm thinking of right now are the weed growing. So in the state of California, it's now legal to grow up to 6 plants for recreational use at the property, and you have to be 21 years old or older. Yes.
Okay.
So those two things, whether or not weed is currently present at the listing or was at some point and eradicated since then, it's a disclosure item that has to be disclosed.
Okay, so you told me about a personal story that you have clients and you have a property that has a whole bunch of weed up there. Do you know how much weed that property had?
I actually have a couple of those stories because weed is a good business right now, people. Okay, so the most current one is that we're going to see a property, actually, and the listing agent, over the phone, she told me, I want you to know that there was illegal weed growing at the property, and it's a 24-acre property, and
that's something she had to disclose.
She absolutely has
but
to.
By law,
yeah.
You will know this.
So this is even before stepping onto the property.
Okay.
And we're going to see this in disclosures, hopefully as well, where the seller's going to formally disclose that there was weed growing. And she's like, it's been since eradicated, but you can see it from space. So you asked me, what did you ask me?
I was like, Irina, how much weed are they actually growing? And you go,
and I said, dude, you can see it from space. You can literally, I was just looking at this property from Google Maps, and you can see the patch of.
I'm gonna put it on there.
Yeah,
for sure.
Where they've been growing.
That's a lot of weed, bro.
Yeah, it's a lot of weed. So, which is good news because that means there's sufficient water at the property. So silver lining. Every time there's weed, it needs a lot of water, and also in the wine country, where there's vines, it basically takes a lot of water.
Which in California, I've been hearing a lot where people are moving here to actually open up a business and grow, with all the paperwork and all that stuff. So This property specifically was just doing it illegally. So this is where they got busted and had to be eradicated. And
because it was more than 6 plants, right? Because that's what it's allowable. And it's way more.
It was bushes.
Right, bushes you can see from space. And the second story I had was, this happened a couple of years ago. And it was in a different county, but also it was just a big property, and the seller was not occupying at that time. And all of a sudden they're starting seeing this like giant big water bills from, first of all, it's on well, right? So it's not city, it's not public utility, and therefore they're seeing all this huge water bill, electricity. Well is working, home is working. And they weren't living at the property, and we were in contract. And so we were trying for ways to negotiate the price down at that point. I was representing the buyer, and it was a over $2 million property. It was actually listed close to 3.
Wow.
Like 2,995. And so we talked to a couple of neighbors, and one of the neighbors told us, hey, there was illegal marijuana growth at the property. And I'm like, you said what? And so we came back, as part of the negotiating tactic. This wasn't something that was disclosed to us, possibly because the seller didn't know, because they weren't living at the property.
Oh, the seller was surprised too.
But still, okay, so we put that in official addendum. We came back, something with like, we'll have to confirm if it was fully eradicated and if it was even legal, because it was a different county. Rules are different. So... And of course, they dropped the price. We got it at like 2.65. I mean, the price was substantial, in addition to other things, of course.
Wow, you guys were messing around, and they accepted it?
And they accepted, because who wants the legal liability of weed growth at their property? So it's important.
Okay, well, that's good to know for viewers and people that are interested in knowing like what gets disclosed at a property. What are some of the things that, honestly, that are not disclosed or minimized?
Sure. And I'll be very careful, because honestly, that's a big thing. But as a buyer, as I represent buyers, it's also very important to understand that there is a disclosure inspection timeframe in the contract. California contract is very great in covering all of the bases. And so we initially, going into a transaction, we solidify the time frames. How long is it going to take you as the buyer to inspect the property, inspect all of the material facts about the area, not just the property. It could be Megan's Law, like we talked about in the previous video. It could be about, anything structural, anything at specific property. But there's a big thing about the neighborhood. We all know each city has its good and bad pockets, good and not so great pockets, like where crime rates are higher, it's maybe less safer, or a lot more criminal activity, whatever you want to call it. So as a buyer, it is your due diligence to actually inspect that, because what the seller is going to do...
Not the agents.
No, it's the buyer's agent. Because I don't know, as a buyer's agent, I don't know what's important to you. So it could be Megan's Law. It could be, okay, what are the sex criminals living registered at that area, or what's the crime rate, or, whatever it is. But during that time frame, which is by default in contract is about 17 days, but in the competitive market, we shrink it down to make sure your offer gets accepted, to make it desirable. So it's around maybe 7 days. But during that 7 days, what you can do, what I would recommend, is you can talk to the neighbors, knock on some doors and say, hey, I'm buyer, I'm trying to move into the area. What, how long have you lived here? What would you say about the street? Any crazy activity? Because you can find out a lot of things from the neighbors, and that's the safest way to, get the most accurate data about the area.
Okay, so you actually would encourage people that say, I fall in love with this one particular home, to do some personal investigative work, go
Correct.
there at 6 p.m., 8 p.m. on a Saturday, see if there are parties or if it's loud noises. Exactly. I have a personal story. Well, you were there when the two Doberman ran out.
We were in contract with that property.
Yeah, you were in contract. Yep. We show up at this house, and it's they're
supposed to be
a
rental.
suburby area. Yeah, rental. We show up there, and there are two Dobermans, black Dobermans, aggressive, out on the front yard, off the leash, and
on the neighbor's property.
They ran towards us. You were knocking on the door, and they saw me and my brother in the car. Actually, we jumped back into the car and closed the door, and they just started barking at us. It was freaked me out.
And so what we were buying that property as a rental investment, and so we were knocking on the door, and so our tenant's daughter, it was tenant occupied, and therefore seller did not let us know about anything in the neighborhood.
And the little girl was like, oh yeah, this happens all the time.
She was like, we reported these neighbors a couple of times, nothing happened. So I'm like, okay, well, buying this as a rental property, that's a liability thing.
Yep. So you guys dropped out. Yeah. So that's
things
important.
that you should look out for as the buyer and in a disclosure that the seller provides you with is this word, neighborhood nuisance or noise nuisance, because what that is a very mellow way to cover up some things that might be crazier than they actually seem on paper. What that could imply is that there might be some criminal activity. It might be some noises.
Like break-in robberies and stuff like that. Right. That might be just like very generic in how they word it.
Could be like noise nuisance. That's, I think I've seen a lot. But also, sellers just, understandably so, sellers do not want to drop the desirability of their property. They want to sell it for the top dollar. But you as the buyer, it's your job to inspect, and therefore I, as the buyer's agent, my job is to get as much information and know what questions to ask to make sure you have all of the variables on the table going into this purchase.
Okay.
So
I guess the what your responsibility is to just do some homework on just the convenience and the lifestyle you want to have, right? When you pull up, the front yard, like, how are your neighbors? What is the noise like? But what else?
So things
does
that
it smell there?
So things I would also recommend in a suburban area is drive there several times on 2 separate days, several times a day, just to see what's the activity, because some people are really sensitive if the street is like packed with cars, right? Parked on the side of the road. So I would usually recommend, go there in the morning, go there in the evening on the Friday night when everyone's home from work, or go there on the weekend, see what's happening. Do you see some loud music? Or, on a school day, if the property is closer to a school, for example, they have games, they have sport nights, see if that's trafficy, or if there's a lot of noise that would really affect your lifestyle in that area. So you as the buyer, you convey all of your questions to the seller in writing. Make a list.
Check it twice.
Or 3 times,
if
honestly.
You're naughty or nice.
But as a buyer's agent, I compile a list of questions that are important to my buyer. And also, working with you as the buyer, I may know by then what are some critical things important to you. So we convey those questions that the seller has to answer to in writing. That's the key. Because like I said, disclosure, material facts is the biggest thing for lawsuits and mediation, arbitration.
Put it out there.
Put it out there and see what they say.
They'll find out.
Exactly. And it's our job to get your back, either you're a seller or a buyer, depending on the case. But if, say, I represent the seller, I would always advise my seller, let's use cautious words. And if it's a big thing like death at the property, meth lab, or weed growing, absolutely. That's even like over the phone, straight ahead, because some buyers could be very sensitive to it. But everything else we have to disclose using the proper verbiage to make sure, desirability stays. But it's the buyer's prerogative to find out the details and ask what's important to them.
Good to know. Hey, thank you for liking and subscribing to our channel.
Thanks for watching.
Helps us with the algorithms.
And the rhythm. And I was just going to say, I hope that's useful, because that would be useful to me if I was buying a house.
Oh, super good info. And do some homework.
And
awesome. That's good info, Irina. That was good stuff.
Good topic about weed. All right, you guys. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.